Hi, I'm Shannon. I was going to make a video that was kind of scripted and that I had some ideas and some research that I wanted to kind of apply to my brain because I just found out recently that I'm autistic. Then I got my final, like my actual diagnostic report this week, and that's kind of, or no, I guess it was last week. No, it was this week. And that kind of took over like what I've been thinking about. I've been talking to some of my friends online about the whole diagnostic process and trying to figure out what to share. And then I thought maybe it just doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be really scripted or researched or anything. It could just be like, this is what it's like for me. So I'm going to try that. I'm in a pretty good place in my life. I'm pretty stable, but I changed a lot of things in my life during the pandemic. Like a lot of stuff happened. And this year I've been really kind of feeling burnt out and being really annoyed with myself for not kind of being able to keep up. I've been having trouble staying focused, and I've been having trouble making decisions or meeting deadlines. And so I knew something was wrong, and everything's been kind of feeling too much, and I've been feeling overwhelmed all the time. So anyway, I was reading this novel about this woman who had Asperger's, and I really identified with some of her experiences, and I started doing research to see if I might be autistic, and pretty quickly was like, yes, I am autistic. And as a lot of late diagnosed adults do, I started doing my own research and compiling data points and things, and I wrote a 37-page document all about like how I fit the DSM-5 criteria, and specifically the experiences of autistic women. And I'm intellectually gifted, so that's it confused things, because they got that and they just didn't realize that I was also really not good at some things, or they thought that that was just because I was like, my head was in the clouds, which is apparently really common for women my age. But anyway, I decided to do the diagnostic process. I talked to my therapist. She read my document. She was like, yeah, I think this is going to be a fairly easy assessment. And I started the assessment process with someone that she recommended, and this was someone who had approached her and said they were really interested in expanding their practice to assess adult women and non-binary folks. So I think we both made some assumptions about what that would translate to in terms of their practice. I did. I think she did too. And I looked at his website and I was like, well, he's only like listing organizations that speak for autistic people, not organizations that include autistic people in leadership and in setting the agenda, and like everything on his website is saying people with autism instead of autistic people, which is identity first language is preferred by most autistic people, not all, but a lot. I prefer it. And his practice had previously been a lot with children, and so I was hesitant, but it's hard for me to tell when someone is lying or doing something from ill motives, because I don't know what's in their head, and there's too many options for what it could be. So a lot of times I just have to believe what they say and then watch to see if their stated values align with their actions. In this case, what he was telling her did not align with his website, but the website was really old, and what he was telling her was more recent. And so I said, sure. Also, I just really wanted to get it done. Like, I wanted the piece of paper that said, that when I say I don't understand something, I'm not lying. Yeah, I don't understand some things, or I understand them differently. I have a lot of workarounds to avoid being taken advantage of. And then people will, because I have to be kind of rigid on those systems, because I don't have any natural, I can't do it in a automatic way. People can say that I'm too rigid and too judgmental and things like that. So it's like, actually the problem is I'm not judgmental enough, so I just have to go with a system instead of trusting my judgment. That's really what's going on, but I'm not making a judgment about whether you're a good person or not. I'm just telling you this is the harmful impact of your actions, or on me. I don't know your intention. So anyway, I went forward with the assessment process. I sent him all of my paperwork. He got me on the schedule right away, which is really unusual because people have to usually wait 6 months to a year. But I decided, since I have a good job and no kids, like I would just pay out of pocket instead of trying to go through insurance. It's a lot of money, but I wanted to do it. So I could go on vacation, or I could do this. I could go on like 3 vacations, or I could do this, but I did this. Anyway, I did the process. The first conversation seemed okay. I'd read that it was very important not to mask or camouflage your autistic traits, so I practiced not masking, which is really actually quite hard when you automatically do it for so long. Like, it becomes a sort of muscle memory. It's not comfortable, but it's familiar, conditioned, I guess. I went and did the assessment, the first assessment. And then he kept saying, he seemed very excited about my brain and about the fact that I had a PhD and had owned my house and had done some things that are uncommon for autistic people. But it kind of felt like I was a shiny, a toy more than a person. He kept saying he was talking to me like a colleague, but I didn't feel like he was talking to me like a colleague, because I have a lot of colleagues, and I know a lot of psychologists and people like that, and I've actually got I haven't finished it, but I did half of a graduate certificate in positive psychology last year. So I know a lot of people in psychology. Anyway, it didn't feel like he was talking to me like a peer or an equal. But he would go, yes, every so often when I gave a response. And I was like, I don't think you're supposed to do that, because if I was faking what I was doing and you gave me an affirmative response, that would encourage me to do that thing instead of be myself. I don't think you're supposed to coach people unless it's a trick. And then I that was just so hard. I couldn't figure out what that was. I thought it was weird. And he was talking a lot about how I could have a voice to narrate autistic experience and help people in his field understand it. And I thought, oh, that sounds important. And when I'm not using my logic and my intellectual superpowers to compensate for the areas where I don't really automate evaluating the trustworthiness of people, and I don't, that's a different video, but sometimes it's hard for me. Sometimes my thinking is somewhat simplistic. Over time it'll get more complex, but my initial thought processes can be very simplistic. So he told me that my voice was important, so I was like, oh, I've got an important voice, I should tell my ideas. I'd already connected what I've been researching for 18 years to my autism. So I really had a lot to say, because I've been researching cognition and memory and women, gender, and sexuality and psychology and neuroscience and a whole bunch of other things for almost 2 decades. So I have a lot of background knowledge. But he seemed to think I was coming up with ideas out of nowhere, which I was like, I have a PhD. It was weird. So the first experience just seemed a little weird, but I was flattered and thought it was good that he wanted to hear my ideas. So I emailed him afterwards, and my therapist, and I was like, do you want to, I have a lot of ideas. Do you want to hear them? Because he was telling me, maybe I should write a book. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll write a book. Because I'd already written 30,000 words. So I wrote another 10 to 20,000 words in that week. And I sent him a whole bunch of excerpts. And I asked, I said, is this appropriate? I don't want to just bombard you with my thoughts if you don't want to hear them. I only want to do it if you want to hear them. If you're interested, I'll keep sending them. If not, then just tell me. And he said, I love it. So I kept sending them. And then we had the second conversational assessment. And that's where it got really weird from my experience. So the second conversational assessment, he was late, and then he told me, this was the situation, I know you understand. And I was like, okay, yeah, I understand. But that it's hard for me to adjust quickly when things don't happen the way I'm expecting them. It just takes me a little while. And he kept just talking, and he was very scattered, and he was pulling papers from all over his desk, and we were on Zoom. And he just started referencing things from the last conversation, but he wasn't referencing what I actually said. He was kind of summarizing in his own words, and he was misreading or misrepresenting to me what I had said. So he said, well, you said you didn't like soft touch, but you like soft blankets. And I was like, I didn't say I didn't like soft touch. I said I don't like light touch because it's a pressure thing. I don't like things that just kind of skate along the surface of my skin. A lot of time my skin crawls when I'm overloaded, and so I don't like anything that's like that. Like, but firm pressure is fine. That has nothing to do with whether it's soft or not. That's texture, not pressure. So I was trying to explain what I meant for that, and he was already kind of, and then I was worried about his comprehension. So this is how my brain is like, I'm slow sometimes. I'm slow to process. Like, I get there, and I have a really complex understanding of the world, but over time, like not in the moment. There's a time lag. So I was kind of stuck on that, and he was talking about baiting people and how people lie and the social function of lying, and how I just didn't understand why it was like, why lying was important. And I was really confused because I'm like, yes, but lying is a bad thing. Like, you're not supposed to lie. And like, that's where most of my problems come from, is when people just don't tell me the truth. Like, if they tell me the truth, I can make good decisions and know what's going on, but it's when they start lying that I get really panicked, because my attention glitches. When I was trying to self-diagnose myself, I was like, I think it's probably autism and ADHD, which actually, yes, he confirmed, and sensory processing issues. But my attention glitches, so sometimes I don't notice things, and that can lead to wild misinterpretation. So I need signposts. I need us to say, yes, this is what happened, and now we'll go to the next thing. And that way I know I'm not crazy, and I know I didn't miss something really important, and I can still trust the other things that I think. And I was getting really lost in what he was talking about. And he's talking, and then I'm like, why would you say that it's important to lie? And I was getting very confused. And then he was asking me if I thought people mattered, like if they were just social rituals that, and I was like, are you asking if I have the capacity to care about people? And he was like, yes. And I was like, yes, I have the capacity to get, like, I was very confused by, I think he was doing process of elimination for various, like, sociopathy, things like that. But, like, the questions were just coming out of, like, one after another without any, like, turn points, which is really hard for me to follow. And they were also really offensive questions. Like, I don't necessarily react to being offended in the moment because of the processing lag, like, but I can recognize when something is dehumanizing and offensive. Like, it just takes me a little bit longer. And, asking if I have the capacity to care, pretty offensive. And then he also said at one point, oh, I don't think you can be offended. And I was like, I can be offended. Like, it was just very confusing. He kept saying things about me, kept doing that yes when he got an answer he wanted, and he wasn't explaining why he was asking the different questions, and he kept, like, he had this perspective that I wasn't expecting, that, like, yes, but it is important that people lie. Like, lying serves a social function, and your rigidity and not thinking that people should lie is, I guess, a deficit. Which I didn't experience it as a deficit, because I don't agree with a lot of people, and people do lie. But I don't think it's my deficit. I think that it's a deficit in the interactions. I don't know. Anyway, he was saying all of this about baiting and then lying, and then he was talking about manipulation, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden he says, just stops, and he looks at me, and he's staring into the camera, and he's like, you would be dead by now. And that's when I completely, like, I had no idea what was going on, because that was a really weird thing for a psychologist to say. I don't think you're supposed to say that. Also, why was he saying it? Because I was still trying to figure out why he was asking about, like, why he was talking about baiting and manipulation and lying. So then I was like, okay, wait, what? So then I just froze, and for the rest of the time I was just like, uh-huh, oh, yes, uh-huh, which he didn't seem to notice. But I was like, why would I be dead? Why is he telling me I would be dead? And then he started crying, and then I needed to understand how vulnerable I was to predators, and that I had to keep myself safe for the sake of the people who loved me. And then he told me that his close relative had been assaulted, and he seemed to be comparing me and my vulnerability to this relative's. And I mean, at this point, I'm like, my psychologist is crying. He just told me I would be dead. And now he's talking about how I will be raped, like saying that's an imminent threat. And he seems to be making his relative's assault all about him, because it's like, you'll hurt the people that love you if you let yourself be assaulted. And I have a PhD in women's studies. So like, that's some victim blaming shit and some real entitled misogyny because like, first of all, your relative's assault is not about you. She didn't let herself be assaulted and fail to protect herself and have that all be about you. Whoa. And secondly, you are telling a patient in a vulnerable setting, like you're telling me that's an imminent risk, and you're telling me it's my responsibility to protect myself from that imminent risk in order to protect the people around me, not to protect myself. Like, it's all kind of fucked up. So I was just like, And that I think is where the autism communication deficit comes in, because I can't react in real time. I'm trying to figure out if I missed something and if something makes sense, and if I just factor in something else. Like, but I'm still in the interaction, and I can't let on, like, it's habit. It's like a safety mechanism. I can't let on that I don't understand what's going on, because that's not safe. And it could be embarrassing. It could undermine my professionalism. It could undermine my relationships. So, and I didn't know I was autistic until recently, so like I had no reason why I wouldn't be able to understand. So, you know, you just gotta like hide that shit. So anyway, this continues, and I'm gonna be honest, like after the crying, I don't remember a lot of what happened. He was talking about a war in his field and how psychologists are just arguing about what autism is, and that I could be a powerful like voice for his side, and he's urging me to like write my book and things like that. And I'm like, am I even here? Like, I'm paying $2,500 for this guy to assess my brain out of pocket. And I have no idea what's going on in this situation, but it does not seem to be about me. So anyway, I got off the call, and I was like, thank you for helping me with this. Didn't mean to cut off there so unexpectedly. My mom came over about 45 minutes early to help me with the garden, and then we were out there for several hours, and I've since showered and am clean. But I'm gonna stop there because the aftermath of the assessment was its own whole story, and this is already a really long video. I did notice when I was editing it that I laugh a lot when I'm saying like things that were really concerning for me or frightening in the moment, that when I tell the story I have a tendency to kind of laugh. I don't think those things are funny. I'm not laughing that someone else was hurt, and I'm not laughing that I was really scared, but that's sometimes my emotional affect doesn't match what I'm saying. It's a thing, but I do care. I do care. So that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video.